not, or, you know, what are you thinking you may sell if you're going to sell on here?
Okay. So, okay, Melody Williams, obviously. So I'm in Humboldt County, California, live in Arcata, which is by the coast. I mean, right by the ocean. So I am interested in a side hustle. I'm still working from home full time. But I'm, I'm getting preparing to retire soon. So what I was thinking of is I'm going to go in with my sisters, and we all do different things. And we were thinking of doing an Etsy shop, um, and we just did the Instagram, you know, how you create one and do all that. So we're pretty excited about that, and that will link us to Etsy. And then then this Facebook came up, so I thought, well, that's great too, to link it all together. So we are still in the process of even coming up with, our basically our mission statement and our name and all that stuff. So we're at the very beginning of it. And even because there's 3 of us, and then we also have a niece, we're working on an agreement. So we all agree on how everything's going to work, returns or complaints and all that stuff. Because because there's this many people, I mean, we get along, but when it comes to money and family, I mean, yeah, things may be weird. So I told him, we have to agree on everything. So we're taking it real slow, which is good. And we're learning all along, and I'm sharing the videos and everything with them. So I know on Facebook, I see people now more and more selling individuals. And we also have the marketplace here, 707. So there's that. So, and even where they live in Mendocino County, which is south of where I live. So we're thinking of Facebook would also be a good platform to use to sell. So like I said, we all have different things. I make salves, healing salves. I do the little medicine pouch. So that's my thing. And they have other things. So we're going to go in, Native Sisters selling, yeah, like that. So that's kind of where we are. We're, because of COVID having to be in place, I think this is a perfect opportunity for us, and we're all of age. I just turned 65, and so we don't mind being home. We feel safe here in our homes, and so this is just something we thought we would all be able to do in the future. So that's where I am with that.
That's great. So I love that you're selling the salves. My son, who is a competitive rock climber, buys them quite often. And so always has them on the ends of his fingertips because they're just raw all the time. So we can't keep those in our house at all.
Yeah, lots of people swear by it. It is hard to keep in stock. So
Yeah. Great. Great. Well, thank you. Michelle, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, and have you
Sure.
sold on Facebook, or what you're planning to do?
So actually, I'm an advisor with the Small Business Development Center, and I'm located in New York. And I got information about this program from the Economic Development Office at the St. Regis Mohawk Tribe. I've been working with them for a number of years to help, the businesses there to grow and develop, and we've been providing our service there. And I've got a number of clients that are interested in selling more on Facebook. And I've helped a lot of people with like Facebook marketing and that side of things, but I haven't really gotten into using the marketplace as much. So I'm not really able to advise them as well. And I told them all about this, and I was hoping to see them here today, but they're not. So I guess I'll be I'll be transferring the information to them, hopefully. So
great. Well, we are recording this, so we can make sure we get the recording to you. But so we will walk through the PowerPoint and tell you guys how to do that, and then we'll move over to Facebook. And I actually have a product that I'm going to sell today. So I'm going to show you how to set it up step by step. and show you the research I've done. And so by the time you get off this call, you'll be able to do it all yourself, which will be great. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. Melody knows me. We've been hiking together, but why I am the trainer today is I sold over 600 items on Facebook Marketplace last year. I don't even think Lynn, my colleague, knows that, but we downsized from a large house to a tiny house. And I even sold my house on Facebook Marketplace. So my buyer that came through my house, that bought my house, even though we had a listing agent, came through Facebook Marketplace. And it was the better choice for us because, of course, he didn't have an agent on his side, and we saved money by using Facebook Marketplace. I have a good friend that I talked to this morning. They actually purchased their house 4 years ago on Facebook Marketplace, and he's purchased his last 4 cars and just constantly buying things. So it is my go-to today, and I love it. So about 3 years ago, I was volunteering a lot at a food bank, thrift store, that I still volunteer at. And I noticed there was so much stuff coming through our warehouse, like so much that we couldn't even get it out on the floor. And one of my resolutions that year was to try and buy secondhand as much as I could because there's so much stuff out there. And that's really when I discovered Facebook Marketplace, because not only was I buying, but I was also selling. And this pen that I'm going to sell, that we're going to put on today, I actually purchased this pen for $1 at the thrift shop that I volunteer at, and came home, and it's worth over $300 to buy it, between $300 and $400 new. And this is vintage 2002. So so we'll go into that a little bit more, but first I want to tell you guys a really kind of horrendous, the worst story ever, so you can put some safety perimeters around how you guys sell this. It's the most fun. My husband and I, a couple years ago, decided to start an Airbnb, and we had an Airbnb for 3 years. And I was looking for a bed. Bought a brand new mattress because that's really important, but I wanted a beautiful wood frame. And so I found one, and I went and bought it. I have a rule of leaving things outside for at least 2 days, not bringing it into my house, just because I bought secondhand throughout my life and I know what happens. And I put it out in the sun, and within about 3 hours saw that there were all these bugs coming out of this wood frame bed. So I had bought a bed that was full of bed bugs, and it literally took me 2 weeks and ended up calling a professional exterminator to get them out. And you know, that's one of those things about Facebook Marketplace. There are no guarantees. No, you know, somebody probably won't take it back because those people probably knew it had bed bugs. But you know, I've had the worst and the best story, so I'm a good person to teach this class. And so I'll tell you a little bit about some of those perimeters later on as you buy and sell. But like I said before, I have sold over 600 items. My name is Camille Koster, and I am a trainer with IDRS, and I'm going to move us over. And I saw a couple more people got on real quick. Let's talk to them real quick before we move on. Virginia, would you like to tell us about yourself real quick before we move on? We'd love to hear who you are, where you're from, and your experience with Marketplace. You are muted. I don't know if you can unmute. If you want to jump in at any time, if not, we'll go ahead and get started. So today you guys are here to talk about how to buy on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm just going to share my screen with you real quick. If you have not done a training on Zoom, I will tell you, when we do this, where we go through a PowerPoint and jump to the internet, it feels a little bumpy at times. Just know that's regular. It's the technology we're using today, but it will. But I want to really show you guys some things through the PowerPoint, and then we'll move into the live version. At the 1 hour mark, Lynn is going to remind me we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll keep going. So this is interactive. If you have a question at any point, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it. because I want it to be as interactive as possible. So there are multiple ways to make money on Facebook Marketplace. We mentioned a couple already, but why Facebook Marketplace? So for me, when I'm selling, and I've done a lot of selling, owned several businesses, ran an Airbnb, like I said, Facebook Marketplace is one of the most logical places to start because number one, it's free. If you're doing a local market where you're not shipping, you're not creating a Facebook store, and we're going to talk about that in a later webinar. But if you're just doing the Facebook Marketplace, you can sell completely for free, which is great because very few platforms actually allow you to sell completely for free. Next, there are lots of great people and advertising and marketing. When you look at the number of people on Facebook today and you look at the number of people who log in daily, multiple times a day, I mean, every day the stats change, but it's more than once an hour at this point that people log in. And so you've got this automatic local audience. You can set your products up to sell them nationally, however you want to do that, but you already have people at your fingertips to sell. So that is great. And then in addition to just having Facebook Marketplace, there are also Facebook Marketplace groups, and we'll look at those. And so for instance, I love to hike in Chacos, and so I'm part of a Things for Sale Chaco in the Oklahoma area. So if people are selling Chaco products, they're in that group. And so there are specific ways to not just enter the large market, but also into certain groups in Facebook. And that's pretty phenomenal too. So if you have not added Marketplace to your Facebook account, here is just the ways that you would do that. If you were on your computer, you can see on the left there, you would essentially just hit Marketplace, add it right there. On your phone, it'll show up somewhere when you actually go into your account and look at the menu. So there are times that people have a hard time finding Marketplace, or they can't add it through their phone. And so, I would suggest just Googling it, and there are some back ways that you can do it, but most people can get there this way. Now, just like everything else, every single platform, just like Zoom and everything else, they are constantly changing. And I probably post maybe one item a week. And on Monday, I posted a new item and the format was totally different than it had been just even a couple weeks ago. And so don't be surprised if you get on and it's a different format. So what can be sold on Facebook Marketplace? And what's the big selling items? So Melody mentioned Etsy earlier. And Etsy is something where you sell items that you have made or handmade. So what's sold on Facebook Marketplace? So there's not a number one seller that sells on Marketplace, but three of the most common categories are vintage items that have been refurbished. So a lot of what I've sold have been furniture items that I have bought at a thrift shop or a garage sale and resold. New items that are third party, and just like the middleman type side hustle, and that's something else I've done a lot of. So for a while, I was going to stores and buying items such as a discount store like Ross or TJ Maxx, finding things on the clearance aisle. And one of them that I found was a bike rack for $5 that I ended up selling for $50. And so you can always sell those items, and then unique items that you've made. So I have a beautiful list that Melody made me, and so I know she makes things that can be sold. And so you can sell in addition to just in a marketplace, like a physical marketplace where you go. All right, so just when you think you have seen it all, you can get on Facebook Marketplace and find things you never thought you would find. So this particular item is obviously a toilet, It is listed for $800 as a grill cooler. And in the back, they have a cooler in the front, and it's listed as disposable. And I thought that was like the funniest thing ever. So you will find anything and everything on Marketplace. And you can sell anything. Hang on just a second. I'm going to move over to my other headset. Lynn just told me there was some noise. So let me. Lynn, is that any better? I think it's actually my air conditioner.
Oh, yeah, I don't hear the
Okay.
background noise.
So
but
what
you
can
do
you not
sound
sell?
a little
Because there are things you cannot sell on Facebook Marketplace. And I have actually been flagged before with things that I couldn't sell, and I didn't know it until I learned the hard way. So some of the things you cannot sell are anything that's not a real item, like a gimmicky item, a lost dog, or anything made up. So you cannot sell tickets to anything. So if you have tickets to a concert and you're trying to resell them, Facebook Marketplace is not somewhere you can sell those. You cannot sell animals at all, but you can sell animal items. And so I've heard lots of people figure out ways to get around things, and they list them a certain way, but just know that anything that says an animal will not be posted. So healthcare items are something that you cannot sell. And then any illegal prescription drugs, any recreational drugs, ammunitions, weapons, alcohol. I mean, just kind of those normal things you would think, yeah, I probably shouldn't sell that on Facebook Marketplace. But if you go and look, you're going to see some of these things that people have posted them in creative ways. But I will tell you, this week when I posted, there is a new check that I hadn't seen before, in that my post didn't automatically go up like they had gone before. And I actually got a message that says this will be fact checked. And as soon as that's done, you'll get a message that it's being posted. So I think they've had to put some additional safety standards in there. So what about safety? So what are people going to see? So I'm someone who has a very private Facebook page because I put pictures of my kids, and it is very much my life. And I want to see what my kids are doing and different things. So my privacy settings are strong. And, you know, that has always been my concern. If I start selling on Facebook, what will people see? So I'm going to show you guys. Here's a post. We do a lot of woodworking and building, so I'm always looking at wood. So this popped up on my Facebook. And when I look at this guy's information, I can go and hit the seller information, J.R. Green. Because I'm not friends with him, this is all I see. So when somebody, if your profile is public, then they're going to be able to see everything about you. But if your privacy settings are private, then don't worry, people cannot see any more than anyone else would see. So, you know, I can't see really a whole lot about this guy at all. So let's talk for a minute about what you need to get started. So this is easier than you think. And we'll go into some of the more details of the quality photos, but you know, there's a few particular things that you need. And after you get into the flow of those, they're very easy. And I'm all about cutting and pasting and all about making forms and actually being able just to move things around. So that's something I've done. So first of all, you're going to want to always take quality photos. We're going to look at the photos I took, and I didn't really look at them to see how perfect they are or are not, because I want to see kind of, you know, show you guys what we're looking for. You always want to put your product in the best stylized manner. So remember, people are seeing what's behind your product. They're seeing if your kitchen is messy, if you happen to be shooting in your kitchen, like I was this morning on my kitchen cabinet. You know, I always try to put that product in the most natural arena that would be in, thinking about light and thinking about, you know, what's around it, what's behind it, because people are looking at that. So if you have an item that has some faults, I've sold things with scratches, or I've sold things that, you know, maybe had a broken leg. I always made sure to photograph those and put them in the picture. So I have a good friend who buys on Facebook, another one a lot, and she actually went to pick up a product and got there, and what the person had done is pulled off pictures from Amazon for the product she was selling. She didn't actually take pictures of the product itself. And when my friend got there, it was completely a mess compared to the photos. And we'll talk a little bit more about reviews and what would happen, you know, if that happened to you all. But just know people are really looking at your photos, and that's what they're expecting. So don't use a lot of filters, you know, don't go overboard, but make sure you do your product justice. And then descriptions. I love catchy descriptions. So I sold a vintage large canning pot, and I started the description with, have you always wanted to try canning but didn't want to invest the money, because I sold this canning pot for like $10. And so I always start mine with some little catchy words, because your description is your sales tactic. It is your sales pitch. You know, you can talk to people, but that first like thing they read is going to determine if they buy or not. Okay, you're going to always make sure, and this is a drop-down box of new, used, or good condition. Pick the closest one. Don't put everything new or gently used if it's not, because once again, you know, they're looking to see that it's exactly the same condition that you promise. The next one is keywords. So once again, when we talk about like Etsy, they have keywords. Facebook Marketplace also has keywords. Always pick the best keywords closest to your product and as much as possible. And then the last thing is safe location to meet. So this is all you need really to get started. It's not a lot, and you know, you can get your product online. So let's talk for a minute about the process of selling. So last year at some point, I know Lynn started selling on Facebook Marketplace, and we had a conversation about people, you know, asking questions and responding. And I don't know if any of you guys have sold yet on Facebook Marketplace, but if you post a product and it is a good price and people want it within moments, you can get so many, I call them bubbles. You get bubbles of people talking to you, and it can get confusing and overwhelming because the conversation is a whole lot. So we're going to talk a little bit about strategy, about how to do it correctly. And, you know, just for this week, I noticed on one of my selling groups that a woman had thought she purchased a kayak, and because it was cash, she was going to be picking it up at 9 in the morning. And so she messaged the woman, hey, I'm on my way. And the woman said, sold. And this kayak was sold out from under her. And, you know, that's one of those things on Marketplace that you see. But, you know, one of the selling strategies that you can think about is just really honesty. I've underpriced things. That's one of my selling strategies because I want to move them. But if someone comes back and says, hey, I'll pay you $50 more, I'll be honest with the person that, you know, I think is going to buy it the next day or buy it that afternoon. Hey, I just got a higher bid. They went up $50. Are you willing to do that? And if not, I don't mind selling it to that person that gave a higher number. I mean, it's a negotiation platform. So remember that this is a negotiation platform. Okay. So when you publish a listing, So it does not automatically come up. It says here that'll come up with minutes, and it will come up with minutes because they're, you know, it's going through AI. I don't think they have a real person actually looking at this. It's going through a filter, and if it is approved, you'll get a quick message that says your item has been published. If it has not, you'll get something that says your item has been red flagged. And I accidentally, not knowing that I couldn't put a BB gun on there, tried that one time, and it red flagged it and said that I couldn't actually sell the BB gun on Facebook Marketplace. So I took it down. If for any reason it's red flagged and it's wrong, you can actually appeal that process, and it takes about a week. So once you list your item, it will be listed for 7 days. You don't have to do anything to it. It's listed for 7 days, and at the end of those 7 days, it will pop up and say, hey, do you want to renew your item? So that's a good thing if it hadn't sold within those 7 days. The next one is reducing your price. So we'll talk a little bit about pricing strategy, and everybody does it different. But if you post your item, and I'm actually going to reduce the price on one of my items today so you guys can see how it happens. Everyone that's looked at it up to that moment will get a text or get a notification through Facebook that that price has been reduced. I have used strategies such as reducing $1, $5, depending on what it's been, just a small amount to get it back in front of someone's face. Or if I'm really wanting to move it, I may cut it, you know, more significantly. So, like I mentioned before, you can just throw them out onto Marketplace, and you can actually join certain groups and you can post them in those groups. So when you post, you can choose basically Marketplace, additional groups, and you can even post it on your page. So let's talk for a second about selling strategy. So we'll go through the process in a minute when we post this pin and look at things, but there are multiple selling strategies, even when you're doing, you know, selling any kind of things. And so think about, do you sell high? Do you sell low? Do you sell in the middle? And so here's what I do. First of all, anytime I have something to sell, I go onto Marketplace and I put that item in to see if anybody else is selling that item. So at that point, I can see what's in my market, similar products. Is it the same product or maybe close to it? What kind of price they are, the price point, or what kind of price they're charging, and how much there is. A little while back, I'm trying to remember what it was. I was going to sell something, an item that I was just getting rid of, and I brought it up. Oh, it was my son's bike. Brought bikes up on Facebook Marketplace, and there were like 300 in my area, and they were as low as $25. And to me, that was an item that was just easier to donate to somebody who needed a bike than to deal with that. So, you know, always look at that. And so then with that, you can, you know, price your item at a high end. So what are the highest end products selling for in that category? You can do a mid-range, or you can sell it for low. And so I look at, when I'm selling something, you know, probably 50% of what I paid for it is what I would sell it for a lot of times. Or, you know, if I really wanted to move it, it may be only 75%. I actually take a 75% hit on that product, but you'll know as you start to move things in your local market. And of course, you know, what would sell in California, the price would be so different than what we would sell it for here in Oklahoma. And so remember that, you know, I mentioned you can always mark the price down. So you can always start, you know, high and give it a couple days. And if it doesn't work, like right now, I've got this carpet shampooer that I'm going to show you guys, and I've had views, but no one has even reached out to me. So that tells me, number one, that the price is too high, but I didn't want to sell it before today. Okay, what about taxes? Because that's a good one that, you know, people ask about. So if you, it says if you sell over $600 that you will get a notification from Facebook I will tell you, I've never got one from Facebook telling me that they're going to send me a tax document, but just know that taxes are on you. They're not on anyone else, that you are supposed to claim these items on your taxes, that you've sold them. And when you actually mark them sold, and we'll go through and look at that, it'll ask you if you sold it on Facebook Marketplace or if you sold it somewhere else, or you can say, you know, I don't want to answer. And then after you sell, it's up to you whether you want to go back and delete that listing or actually leave it there. I've deleted a lot of mine just because I don't like having all of that in my marketplace, but everybody has a different strategy. Does anybody have a question up to this point?
So when you said 600,
Melody, you're muted.
is that total amount or is that just one item, 600? Could you hear me?
Can you hear her? I can hear you,
I
Melody.
am not hearing you, Melody.
I'll put it in the chat. How's that?
Hey, Lynn, can you hear her? Because I cannot hear her. Okay, so it's me that I can't hear her for some reason.
Yeah, it's not on your end, Melody. It's on Camille's end. I've let her know.
Okay, now I can hear. So sorry.
Okay, good.
Okay, can I hear the question again?
Okay, you probably hear the washer going. Anyway, so is that 600 per item or is it 600 total?
600 total. And Melody, it sounds like you may end up creating a Facebook store if you're going to have a lot of products, and that's a totally different category. So when we get to that class, we'll make sure you're in that too. So that's different, but you could definitely start here. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk for a second about how to do this. So I mentioned before that as soon as you post your listing, and for me, because I said I usually do kind of a lower price, oh, we got something in the chat real quick. So let's answer that before we go on. If someone is selling handcrafted items, would it be a good strategy to leave some of the sold items up so people can see the type of items you've made in the past? So after they've been sold, you can't really see them unless it goes into your profile. So if I'm looking at someone's, you know, what they're selling, it will tell me about their reviews. And, you know, unless you're really searching deeply, you can't find those items. Now, there are some strategies around that that you can actually mark, and we'll get to that there's more than one product. So if you make something that's maybe different colors or a different pattern, you can keep it up there so that people can always see it. So I'll make sure and hit that, but that's a good question. Okay, so as we mentioned before, just as soon as you start posting, you're gonna, if it is a good amount of money or something that is in high demand in your area, then you're gonna start getting messages from people. And so we're gonna talk about descriptions in a minute of how important it is to have a robust description, because if you don't put every single detail about your product that you are listing, then you're going to get every single question that you can possibly think about. And that's something I really learned. You know, if you don't put the dimensions of a piece of furniture, people will ask. If you don't put the color, and you know, you think you could see it in a photo, people will still ask. I mean, there's all sorts of great questions. People ask, Was it in a house that had pets because there are allergies? So, you'll really get to kind of see as questions start coming in how you want to design your post. And mine, I do them a little different based on what it is. Like for instance, the shampooer that we're going to look at that I posted, because it only has had natural shampoo carpet cleaner through it, I posted that because I know a lot of people are worried about allergies. So I would love for you, just like Melody mentioned before, her and her family are getting together, their processes for how they're going to run their business. I would suggest you do that very early on. So if you're someone that you're willing to negotiate with the price, that may be something that you put in your listing, or, sold to the highest bidder, whatever it may be, because those things will come up. And when they're listed in your description, it's a whole lot easier to fall back to than someone saying, I can't believe you sold that out from under me. And so think about those things before you post. And then secondly, remember, this is your posting. Just like your cell phone is for you to, it's for your convenience. This is for your convenience. So people will run you ragged after you start posting because they'll want to pick up right now, or they'll want to pick up on their time frame. And quite honestly, people don't show up. I mean, I've had quite a few times that, I've tried to fit people into my schedule and juggle things, and I get there and I sit there for 30 minutes and no one shows up. And so think about your Facebook Marketplace just like you would run any other business, and kind of set some parameters as you get started. You don't answer things after 10 p.m. or just being able to say, hey, I'll get back to you tomorrow, whatever it may be, because if not, it can be consuming. So let's look real quick at a couple things. So I mentioned before, they started putting a picture that says this listing is in review. So to the far left, you can see the spin scrub that I listed earlier this week so we could use it. And it's telling me that they're reviewing it. And I actually checked the little box, or the little tab that says notify me when this is visible. And so it did. It sent me a notification that it's now live. And so I knew I could start getting buyers at any minute. The next one is my house I listed. And this is just to show you on a computer how things come in. So to the far right is how they come in on my phone. To the far left is how they came in on my computer. And just so you can kind of see the difference. But as you can see, on the far right, when I had listed this item, I just kept getting more and more conversation, and people like, tell me, I want it. Let's, and want, as you see at the very bottom right, is someone that thinks they're going to get it immediately. So, and right above there, you can see my son, Cade Coster, said you may want to consider checking the spelling and grammar of this. So if you have a child that can do that for you, that would be great, because he checks me all the time. But there is certain logo or certain lingo that people use when they're on Facebook Marketplace. And it's pretty universal across the states or in the nation, because I just bought another bed frame that I checked really well in Myrtle Beach a couple months ago. And so the lingo that was going on in that Facebook Marketplace was the same one here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I am. Now, just because she says she wants it doesn't mean she get it, because there are, like 12 people above her that wanted it prior to her. But you'll see conversations, I want to be considered for this. But remember, and I'll show you how I do this, but you're going to decide how you do this, whether it's first come, first serve, whether it's first person to pick it up, create your business process. I'm someone who will not hold for anyone, because I've been burned by that quite a few times. But if you're someone who we'll hold, you know, that's something you can decide. But there have been a lot of times, you know, in the beginning where someone said, will you hold this for me for 24 hours or until I get paid? And then you never hear back from them and you've lost customers. So that's one of those things, you know, I don't suggest you do. So we talked about reselling items. So this is a great sweater I got at a thrift shop. And so you see, I just put it in a very simple photograph, and I had like 5 more photos of it. But look at the detail, or the details that I've listed. So I basically measured the sweater so that someone could kind of see how long it would be on them, put the colors. I actually put how it fits, because, you know, we know as women, a large is not always a large, and they all fit so very different. And then I put the pickup location. And so that's another place that is really important depending on where you are. I actually have people pick up in a nicer area of town, just a little bit further from where I live, because I am thinking if they're picking up in this part of town, they have a certain connotation to it. So just think about that, where you're going to meet someone, not only for safety, but what they assume. I put no holds and cash only. So one time I did accept a PayPal for something that someone asked me to put in the mail, and they paid the additional shipping for that. But other than that, I usually put cash, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But once again, figuring that out in the beginning. So there are lots of ways that you can accept money. So if you're not going to have them pick up at a certain location and you are going to ship, that is more of a Facebook store, and everything actually can go through Facebook. They can pay through Facebook. There are guarantees through Facebook, but remember, in the marketplace, there are 0 guarantees. Facebook does not actually support this sale at all, so they're not helping anyone who has a bad experience. It's all on us, you know, so know that whatever you set up, it's all on you and that buyer. So, you know, when you go and meet someone to either buy or sell, they may not necessarily love the product, and they may actually say, no, I don't want it. And so you move on to the next person, and that's pretty typical too. Okay, so let's talk for a second about your photography tips. I know I went into them briefly, but let's talk for a minute what we really want to do. So always keep the clutter and the background to a minimum. I mentioned earlier, put it in the setting that you would normally put it. I love natural light. So, you know, sometimes if I had a piece of furniture that was in my house somewhere, I would put a photo there, but then I would take it out in the natural light just to show the difference in the light spectrums. Think about using a background that is either a solid color or white or black, depending on what you're photographing. And, you know, if you don't have great light, I have this little halo light right here on the other side of me. So, you know, think about even making a light box and using a flashlight or whatever you need to do to create your light, to put it in the best way possible. And then make sure you always clean up. So before I actually took photographs of this that we're going to list today, I cleaned the box. I actually got some wood cleaner to clean the box, got some silver cleaner to clean the pen, because every detail shows up in a picture. And if there are fingerprints, you know, dirty marks, because it's a used piece of furniture you've used, just clean it up real quick, because it will always sell better. And then if you can, start with the first photo with the entire object in the frame. So your first photo that they see is going to be, you know, your profile picture, you could say. And so they're going to see the entire item. Then after that, I suggest you always do detail photos. So close-ups of certain things depending on the item. But remember, that first one needs to be that full picture. So you can put up to 10 photos per listing. And I suggest you do put as many as you can, because of course, just like with everything else, the more detail, the more photos, the more you put into Marketplace, your post will actually get kicked to the top. So Marketplace is a SEO, just like Etsy and Airbnb. And so, you know, you going on and interacting with your profile and interacting with your Marketplace is a good suggestion, because it will kick things up. And then think about if you're photoing something, and if you have not done this before, when you're taking a photo and you double click your screen, if you've not tried that before, I suggest you do that, because it will actually make the item that you're clicking on come to the front of your screen, and it creates kind of a backdrop of a little bit more of a filter. And so that's a great thing specifically with Marketplace. So, and last, I mentioned before, if there are any dents, tears, anything, you know, put them. We all know that most of this stuff is secondhand. We all know it's refurbished or refinished. And so people do know that things are going to be like that. Things are going to happen. But actually put them out there instead of try and hide them. Okay, next. So what about ratings? So we all have ratings on, you know, every sales platform there is out there, and Facebook Marketplace is the same. So when you go into someone's profile, you can see if they've sold before, when they joined Facebook Marketplace, and what they're rated. So every time you buy or sell, you actually get to rate the opposite party. And it's anonymous, so they don't know that you did it. But you can actually say what they were good at. So let's just say you rate them as a 5. It will actually pop up with, were they punctual? Was the communication good? So it gives them some things to choose from. And so both parties get to do that. And so ratings are important, because I look at ratings very much like eBay. You know, when you buy on eBay, you look at a rating. And so, to prevent from having false ratings, you know, be truthful. If you had to like track someone down, and you were supposed to meet like 3 times and they keep backing out, but they finally actually bought from you, be honest, because the next person may have to do that if you're not. So if something doesn't go right, you can leave a bad rating. Think about that, be tactful with it, because I think, you know, we just don't really know what's going on. But if something really bad happened, make sure and leave that bad rating. But I will tell you, there are ways that are not okay, but there are ways to get around this. And, you know, I mentioned one of my friends earlier who had bought and showed up, and that item that was not actually listed correctly, it had the Amazon pictures instead of regular pictures. When she chose not to buy from this person, the person automatically blocked her on Facebook, which meant that she could not rate the other person. And so, you know, there are buyers out there and there are sellers who know how to get around this. So just be cognizant of that. And if there are things that happen, report them to Facebook. So Facebook wants to know. They are trying to keep us safe. You know, they're trying to make sure that the marketplace is a good place for people to be. So even if someone blocks you and you can go back and identify who that person is, you can report them to Facebook. And of course, never feel threatened at all. Always leave, don't stay, report that to local law enforcement. And that's part of Facebook's policy, because, you know, someone may have a habit of showing up and trying to kind of bully their way through a sale or something. And so make sure, if that ever happens, to report it. So, so if you really Google and start looking at Facebook Marketplace, you can see the pros and the cons. You can see the goods and the bads. You can see there are people that say it's not a great place to sell. There are people that say it is a great place to sell. So, you know, for each of you, I would encourage you to really go and try it out for yourself. You know, try out a couple products in the beginning, maybe small, take a look, spend some time on your marketplace to see what is actually selling, what is moving, you know, what is listed before you decide to dive in. All right, so at this point, we're going to stop for a few questions if there are any questions, and we'll get ready for our break. And then when we come back, we're going to go through and look at Facebook Marketplace, and then we will end up posting a new item. So are there any questions at this point? I don't see any or hear any. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and we will come back in 5 minutes, and we will move over to the practical side and have some fun. And you guys are looking at my personal marketplace just because it's a lot of fun. So when I bring up marketplace over here to the left, we can see we can browse. So that's the first tab, is browsing, and right in the middle of the screen it says search marketplace. So you could put anything that you wanted to search for, and we'll do that in a minute as we start to post my item. I mentioned groups before. So when you hit groups, you can actually see items in groups. So we've got Midtown Tulsa, buy and sell, things for sale in Tulsa. I don't have a lot of groups. I haven't joined a lot of groups, just a couple. But you can also see that I messaged someone about a tropical ruffle apron just a little while ago, and she sent me a message back. And then buying. Here are the things that I've looked at and some of the things I've bought. So we bought a car, this Subaru car down here. We bought that on Facebook Marketplace for our son last year. So if you buy something and someone marks it as sold and they mark you as the buyer, then it will show up on your buying. I bought a whole lot more than that. So that tells me that people actually aren't marking me as the buyer always. And so then you can go to selling. And so when you open up selling, this is basically what you're selling. So right now, we'll go into this in just a second. I've got this Hoover Spin Scrub 50. So I have a lot of items on here that I've sold, but not all of them, because like I said before, that I basically have deleted a lot of them because I didn't want to see everything. But here's our house that we sold. All sorts of great things. So let me take a minute and I'm going to tell you a little bit about something like this. So, you know, we talked about being the middleman, and at one point my son, who is 16, saw me reselling things, and this was a bike trainer I'd bought really cheap and I resold it. But he came up with a strategy better than I even had. And so he started going and buying at our discount stores, and he would essentially put the receipt on the item in his room, tape it to it, and highlight the date. And he would leave it listed on Facebook Marketplace up to like 28 days. And if he didn't sell, he returned the item back to the store. And before I knew it, this kid was making a good amount of money. So just think about that when you're the middleman. You know, think about policies. If you don't sell it, somebody else could buy it. So here's something, you know, an item I bought at a thrift shop, this entire bag of these metal cabinet knobs. And so on this particular, I'm going to show you this listing because this is one that I actually put kind of a comparison. So here was something that I found on the web that they usually sell for like $15 a piece. And clearly I sold them for $40 for the entire bag. And there were so many of them that I was trying to move them. And this is when we were moving. But remember, you can look things up and actually put those comparison prices on there. So you can browse all over here, look at items that you've saved, and then create a new listing, but we're not going to get there quite yet. Okay, so down here, there are all these great categories that you have. So these are listed and you could go into those and look in those categories. So let's go right now and look at what I have for sale, and we'll just take a look at this real quick before, so it add a longer title. So when you look at this, Facebook is really good. If they think you need to do something, they'll tell you. So let's just go in here and I'll do it. Let's see, let's view the listing. All right, so I've got this Spin Scrub 50. When I looked on Facebook, I always go on, like I said, and look and see what they're selling for. That was about the average price. And like I mentioned before, I didn't necessarily want it to sell before today. So I didn't actually put a low price. I'm going to mark it down and I'll show you guys how to do that. So I'm going to just make some adjustments to this while we're looking at it, and then we'll build the new one out in just a second. Okay, so I'm going to say Spin Scrub carpet cleaners because maybe people don't know what it is. So we'll change that. Like it said, I honestly only wanted $50 for this, and so I started at 75, and I'm going to go ahead and mark it down to 50. But over on the right, you can see what I put on here. That it's a floor cleaner in great condition. It has all the attachments. Like I mentioned before, I put in there that I'd only use natural carpet cleaner in there, and I actually took a picture of that. Cash only, will not hold. And then I actually put a link to Amazon for the actual product. It's just like this, but just so they can see what it sells for. And so here were my pictures, great detailed pictures of what to expect. All right, so I'm going to go to next. And so we're going to update that listing. So 18 people have looked at this in the last 14, I don't know how 14 days, because I didn't even list it 14 days ago. That's really interesting. But it's telling me that 18 people have looked at it. And so those 18 people are now going to get a notification that I actually reduced the price. So it will get back in front of them, and it won't let me boost right now. But you can see in the middle, you can actually boost the listing, and that means you're going to pay for it. But so now I may actually get some messages on this because those 18 people just saw that I dropped the price by $25, which is pretty big. All right, so let's go over here. If we don't have any questions, just looking at some of these listings, and we're going to get started. I'm going to go back to where we were just so you guys can see how to get there again. So if I'm going to sell something, before I actually even write that I'm going to sell something, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google. Okay, and I'm going to look this item up. So I'm going to actually look this pin up for us. So the pin that we're looking at is called a Yard OLED. And I looked this pin up, and this is a brand new one, and I just went down to look at where this pin was. So I found this pin, and it's actually out of London, so it's in pounds, and I looked that up, and that's about 380 US. So brand new, the pin that I'm going to list is $380. I know that at this point. If I go over here and put this item into my Facebook Marketplace locally, there are none of them. So let's take a second and look over here at the location to the far left. You can actually put your location over here of where you want to sell. So for me, it's Tulsa, Oklahoma. I can change that to anything. So when I'm in a different city, I always change it. And then you can put how many miles that you want to sell. And that's really up to you. I always want to just look pretty close to where I live. I really don't want to drive 100 miles for something. But you can change that if you're looking for something specific or you're willing to actually meet someone halfway. But so I'm looking at Facebook Marketplace and I see that there is nothing like this listed. So let me expand my search a little bit, because to me, this could be a good item for me to sell because there's nothing like this on my marketplace locally. Okay, so next, I am going to start figuring out how much I'm going to sell this item for. So we saw what it was brand new, but my pen that I have is from 2002. It has the authenticity paper with it. So next I go to eBay, because eBay is kind of like the second place. And here is one exactly like mine for $200, but they've got to get it from Italy. And I also, when I look at all these things, start looking at descriptions, because you're going to use descriptor words that, you know, end up making it look very professional as a post, like you've done this regularly. And so when I look these things up, I look at the description. This one doesn't have a great one, but there's another one that does, that has a great description that I'll show you. So this is the same pen. These links aren't working for me. But this one's listed at $410. So that tells me, and that this one's in here in the US, that tells me that, you know, I have a good market, that it's not just $200 or $200, that I could actually get more money out of it. Here's the pen in. And so as I read this condition and description, it tells me it's unopened. This one is brand new, no imperfections. So I do my due diligence and just kind of research and look at these things to see, you know, what's out there. Like, how do I know how to price this? Because like I said, I bought this for $1 at a thrift shop. You know, selling it for $50 would be exciting, but if I can get $200 out of it. So here's the exact same one in the box with everything. And when I read the description, it has little micro signs of normal use, no dents, chips, cracks. So think about this as you read other people's descriptions, how you're going to write yours so that people get an idea of what it's really about. So could anybody take a guess at this point? What would you guys recommend we sell this pen for? You can either put it in the chat or come off mute. What do you think we should sell this pen for? What should we try? Anybody have any suggestions? 250 to 300. So Michelle, I've never boosted 225. You guys are great because I was starting at 200. I have never boosted just because I've not really had a problem selling anything. If like I said before, my strategy is to move things. So I usually underprice them, quite frankly, kind of like I do yard sales. And I see a lot of movement on my items, so I've never done that. But just like if you're boosting ads on Facebook for your business page, it's the same concept. You can actually, it'll just move it up so that more people see it. And like I mentioned before, make sure you renew it every 7 days if you don't sell it, because that kicks it back up. Okay, well, we'll try 225. I like that idea. Okay, so let's go back to sharing the screen. So if I'm going to sell this, we're going to do this. Here's how you do it. So you're going to choose a listing item. All right, so you can do an item for sale, a vehicle for sale, or a home to rent or sell. So I'm going to go with the item. So we're going to add photos. We're not going to look at those photos because those are pictures of a car my husband just detailed that I just listed a minute ago. All right, so like I mentioned before, you want to start with the entire item the first time, the first picture. So I've listed, and it'll take a minute, so we'll go through this and just add some. Then start adding the detailed pictures. And so how you list them, and you can move them around after, is how people will see them. So think about importance, what could be important to your customer. So this next picture is a picture of the authenticity paperwork that shows that it's the real deal. It was bought in London in 2002. Has some inscription on it from the company. So I took a detailed picture of that, and we'll look at all these as soon as they upload. But like I mentioned, always do all of the photos, because just like every other SEO, the more you add, the better they like you. And I may come back and, you know, change photos. I may do something different with them. So I'm going to add everyone that I can. Okay. So it'll take a minute for those to add. So you can see in the far left corner at the top, it says save to draft. And so let me tell you how I do this. Everybody will do this differently, but I use my iPhone to, not my iPhone, my Android, to take my pictures. And I don't like to have to email them to myself or send them to myself or go pull them off Google, because I really don't love pulling pictures off my Google Drive. So I build out my post on my computer because it's so much easier to do that. And then I actually go back and add my pictures after I've saved it as a draft. And you know, sometimes you may do it the opposite. You may start with your pictures on your phone and save it as a draft and then go back and fill it in. But just figure out what's easiest for you, because if you start selling things regularly, you know, it's not a lot of work, but it's a lot. All right, it is not wanting to add these 10 pictures rather quickly. So let's go back over here, and we're going to look at the description I've written, just so we can have something to do for a minute. Okay, so like I said before, I love to do things in form. So I have a Google document that basically has my items, cash only, no holds, pickup at 36 in Peoria, Tulsa, whatever I put in there, and then I just add to it. So instead of just saying what this pen is, I start with, have you ever wanted to own a beautifully designed vintage pen? So, you know, you're actually creating the stage for what this pen is, and then go into the detail of what it is, making sure that I say that it has the authentication documents, because that's important to an antique or collector, that it has the wooden case, the leather holder, silver cleaning cloth, and directions for use. I did add, it is beautifully designed and weighted, because that was something that someone had on there. It was actually the original listing for the company that you could buy it from now. And then, because you'll see in the pictures, I didn't necessarily clean all the patina off because it is vintage. I didn't clean it so much that you couldn't see where, if you take a really close picture, you can see just a little bit of green. I put that on there because to an antique lover, that's really important. And I just know that from watching the Antique Roadshow. Rhodium finish, if you're talking something that's sterling silver, something that's important to people because you can actually have it rhodium dipped again. And then you'll see my cash only, no holds. So let's go back and see if we've got, the pictures are coming. They're just taking a little bit. Okay. So when we build this out, we're going to have our listing. So I'm going to have 2002 vintage Yardo lead hexagonal diplomatic ballpoint pen, and that's the exact name that I found when I looked it up. I had $200, but we're going to raise that just for today for fun. And then there's a category question that you put it in the best category. And I've kind of went back and forth on that when I'm doing household goods because I don't know which category to fit it in. And you only get to choose one, but guess what? You can always change it. So if it doesn't seem to be moving for a couple days in one category, go back and change it to the other one that you were second guessing. And then there is the question, is it new, used, in, you know, bad condition, all those kind of things. And like I said before, make sure that you choose, let's see if we can refresh. Make sure that you choose the best category. Oh, it didn't let us do that. Okay, so we're gonna add one photo, but we're gonna look at these real quick just so we can show you what I did here. Just for the sake of time, we'll do that. All right, so here are the pictures I took.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
So here was the inside of the box that shows it has the directions. Here's the the document showing that it's authentic, bought in 2002 in London. That's everything that it came with. That's how it was cased when I got it, so I just put it like that. Here's the pin. So I saved this photo because I just wanted to show you guys. You're going to get these kind of photos. Don't post them. Make sure and look at them before you do it. So this is what's stamped on this pin. So if you've got a collector looking for certain things, you know, you really want to take that detail level picture so they can see it. All right, let's go back over here and see if our photo, okay, it's up there, so we can keep going. All right, so the title, I told you guys we're going to use this 2002 vintage title. We're going to say 225. So here are the categories. So you've got home and garden, tools, furniture, household, and like I said before, kind of the household is one between household and appliance. Sometimes I go back and forth. Entertainment, you've got clothing, you know, you've got people who will actually, instead of selling individual items of clothing, they'll sell you a bag of clothing all in the same size or size range, and that's very successful on Facebook. So we're going to go to antiques and collectibles. I see we have something in the chat. So this is used, and we're going to say good. Brand is Yard OLED. And then the description. So I'm going to use the description I had over here. And so we talked about tags. This is a sterling silver pen. So I'm going to put every tag I can. You can put as many up to 20. So you're going to put as many as you want to. So up to 20. And then you're going to hit next. So now you can put your location. This is actually the town I live in. And then for me on my Facebook Marketplace, I have local delivery set up only. So it knows all the time that it's only going to be local delivery for me. Okay, so I can choose at this point it's automatically checked to put it in Marketplace. And these, like I said, I don't have a lot of groups that I'm in, but these are the groups if I wanted to do it. Like this Midtown Tulsa is kind of a posh group, so I'm going to put it in that. And so then I'm going to publish. So now you see that my listing is being reviewed. And I can go in and look at it while it's being reviewed and just see what it's going to look like. So there it is. So you can have people in the comments, they can tag other people, and then they'll be able to see it too. Okay, so we'll have to wait a few minutes to figure that listing out. Are there any questions at this point? Has anyone listed and sold that would like to tell us about it?
This is Lynn. I'll share my experience.
Okay.
I mean, I've sold a few things. So after my dad passed away, we obviously had a lot of his stuff, smoker, travel trailers. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. So most of it we did sell through Marketplace. It was, the only issue that I had with it is particularly the smoker. It was something that my dad built himself. He was an engineer. But his stuff didn't always look pretty. So it was kind of a crazy looking contraption. So I was getting bombarded with all kinds of questions, and some of them were just comments, laughing about the way the smoker looked. But that was, I ended up not selling the smoker. I probably had about 20 people contact me about it, asking questions, and but whenever I posted the travel trailer, that worked out very well. It was like, I think the second person that came out to look at it wanted it, and we threw the smoker in as part of the deal. So I was able to get rid of it that way. So yeah, I mean, it was it's an easy way to reach customers. You just have to, for me, like, I'm not going to post something for sale for $20 because that's not even worth my time.
Right.
To make the post and, then to have to answer people back. So for me, it has to be kind of a big ticket item in order for it to be worth it to me.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And so I'm going to answer Michelle's question in the chat first before we get to that. But she asked about, do you have to be a member of the group? So yes, you do. So you'll go in and actually ask to be a member of the group. They'll approve you, and then you can actually post in that group. Lynn just mentioned the idea of, kind of a dollar amount that's good for her, that she will not deal with things. Bundling is really good in Facebook Marketplace. So like I said, I've sold clothing, not one item, but I would actually have 5 or 6 outfits that I would lay across my bed and take pictures of and sell them. So I sold the outfits for $50 or whatever it may be. And so think about that. If you have like items, maybe you don't want to sell one, and people will ask you, they'll ask you to split it up, and then if they're not selling and you want to do that, you can. But think about that idea of bundling. So let's check back over here and see if they've done anything for us yet. I was going to show you guys a couple things, some of the other things I've sold. So we sold the doghouse. And once again, I love the catchy titles. Keep your dog warm this winter. Sold that one really quick. And then even think about yard sales. So if you have a yard sale, or if you have free items that you want to get rid of, post them on Facebook Marketplace. And this listing, I just put it and I left it, and people came, and before you knew it, everything was off. During my yard sale, I actually put all you can carry for $5 in the middle of a yard sale when I was done. And I was like, people just take it. So be inventive and be creative with this. If you have items and you want to make some money, you definitely can. Okay, so let me refresh and see if I've never actually listed an antique item. Okay, it's there. So now it's listed. I'm going to go completely out of here and then go back in so we can see this differently, because it's going to take me right to that same place. Okay, so remember, if you want to look up the things you're selling, you'll hit selling. And so everything you have listed now shows up. So here's our listing. So I have 0 views at this point, but here's the places that I've listed it to. So, you know, here are, it says list of more places. I don't have a lot of groups, but you know, if I was going to regularly sell antiques, then definitely I would go and become a member of many of these groups. So I would love to hear some of the things that you guys have to sell. So I know that Melody said that she has some products that she's going to sell. So let's just use her for example. And so near me, I have someone selling some homemade soaps and salves. So, you know, Melanie, I would just, you know, go in and look at your market, see how other people are doing this. Great pictures. And, you know, you can, if you guys have not taken the other classes that we have that she mentioned, you can go back and look at the Instagram class for your business. And then of course, we also have had Etsy classes. And so think about how you can use all of these together, because you can actually have a link. You can have links in your Facebook marketplace to other stores and other selling points. And you could list, you know, a story of how you make them. You could list your website. You can do a lot of those things. And then that way people can see the process of how you're doing it. Okay, if a business has a store, is it okay to have that store as the pickup place for items you sell on Facebook Marketplace? Absolutely. So that thrift shop that I mentioned before that I volunteer at, the food bank, we have a guy that's what he does for a living. He comes in and he posts things specifically to Marketplace. And let me see real quick if I can go find that. I don't know that I can find that for you real quick, but you definitely can do that. I'm not friends with him, so it's not letting me do it. But you definitely can do that, and there's not a problem with that. So I had showed you guys a picture that I bought. So one of the things it shows that I bought, it was actually at a resale shop. So it was listed through a secondhand shop, and I bought it there. There are no rules about that. They don't care. So basically they tell you what you cannot sell, those items that we talked about, but definitely it doesn't say anything about a business. Okay, are there any others that I see? Lynn, are there any other questions I'm missing?
I don't think so. You got Michelle's last question, right?
Yeah. And, you know, like I said, you can actually connect. If I was building this out and I had a Etsy store, I would actually list that in there. Now, if you are going to sell on a larger scale basis, and I told you guys there was something that didn't show up today. So prior to last week, when I listed, there was an item that asked, is this a one-time buy or is it reoccurring? So it used to have a checkbox that you could actually say you have more than one of these. It doesn't have that today. So, you know, like I said, it's always changing. But if you were going to build out a store, you could actually build out a Facebook store, which you could have all of your transactions run through. It's pretty regular to other platforms that they charge a certain percentage, but you could also do this locally on Facebook Marketplace if you had people that wanted to pick up locally. Yeah, a lot of our resale shops actually post stuff quite often on Facebook Marketplace. All right, do we have any other questions? We are ending a little bit early, but I'll be happy to answer any other questions. And so if you have never gone on here, you're looking for something, let me share my screen with you real quick. And so if you haven't gone on there and look for things, Thomas mentioned furniture earlier. Let's just say bed frames. So I would put in bed frames, you know, look at these items. I want you guys to look at some of these postings. I'm going to tell you those top couple, probably not going to sell very well. Like this one, I would definitely do that a little bit differently. Just think about those pictures as we look at them. You know, when I sold our house, we actually had a contract that fell through, and we had taken pictures and it was beautiful. And then when the contract fell through, we put it back on the market and there was no furniture and it wasn't moving, and we had to actually put furniture in it. So that tells you how much appearance actually sells things. So look at this one. I mean, this to me would be a bed I would want to buy because it was kind of looks like a nice place. So just keep that in mind.
Camille, I had a question, and kind of a little bit not different, but how would you compare Facebook Marketplace to Craigslist?
Well, you know, I didn't even know that Craigslist still was being used until my friends, I've got a couple of them that really love, and they are being used. But here's the thing, you know, you don't have the people on Craigslist that you have on Facebook Marketplace. You don't have the audience already built in and already using the platform. You know, you have to go to Craigslist separately, where we all just go to Facebook all the time. You know, we're already there, and it's just so easy to flip over to Marketplace and look for something versus having to go through the whole Craigslist process. But, you know, if I was selling something, I would sell everywhere I could, because honestly, you know, everybody has a different market. I haven't looked at the stats on Craigslist. Lynn may know them, I don't know, but I'm not sure, you know, how effectively they're doing right now. I know people still buy.
I bought my car off Craigslist, and I looked on Craigslist because I don't know why, I just felt like, oh, I know why. Because, you know, 10 years ago, I bought my car on Craigslist, and 10 years ago, Craigslist was big and everybody, and I even traveled to Sacramento to look at it, and because it was such a good deal. So then here, it was almost 10 years, maybe not that long. I thought Craigslist. So I went back to Craigslist because I never go there myself either, but I thought that's where I bought that other one. And sure enough, I found a car I really liked, but he had it kind of high. So I just waited and I kept looking, and then he brought the price down. And yeah, so 2 cars.
Wow.
I just wanted to know, because I didn't know Facebook Marketplace had houses, you know, that's wow, or cars. I see, because I just haven't really gone there. So all I've seen is in my group, or, you know, groups that I have is, you know, natives selling jewelry, and so they're selling it individually, right? Just personally, individually, they're selling it. And so that's all I've kind of seen so far. So, but we've opened this up, so now I know where to look. So
Yeah, and definitely, you know, I know when we teach our Etsy classes, we tell you to tag things that are Native American made. You know, make sure you do that on Facebook Marketplace too. And you know, we didn't go through that. You actually can set up your Facebook Marketplace where you will ship. So when you set up your marketplace for the first time, it will ask you questions. Are you willing to ship? And if you are, you know, if you have products that you're willing to ship, make sure and actually write that, or, you know, click that. I have it where it's only local. And, you know, like I said, that one time I shipped a Dr. Pepper bottle for a special request, but that's it.
okay, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One other thing too about, do you ever put it on your description that you will negotiate, or will you do that when it's relisted and it's not selling?
Well, I you know, like I said, I usually price my things low, so there's not a lot of negotiation room. Matter of fact, I usually get people getting price wars, and it kind of goes back to that strategy piece of what you will do. I don't put that because, but if you want to do that, you can. But I would say if you're going to say that, price it high. You know, you can always put OBO or best offer if you're just trying to get rid of something. But just think of this as a sales strategy, just like you were selling on any other platform. That's a good question. And you will have people, you know, just like everywhere else, that will offer you next to nothing and try to get you to move it. So it's, when I post a product, I usually always have my lowest dollar in my mind. And so if someone asks me to go down on the first day or two, never do it. Kind of one of my strategies. I wait till that second time that if I drop the price or something, I never go down that first week. But that's, once again, kind of my sales strategy.
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It looks like Michelle has a question here, Camille.
Okay. When you sell to ship, is it better to include shipping in the price you list, or have the buyer just pay whatever the shipping price is? So if you actually have a store, it does all the work for you, because just like a lot of the other platforms like Etsy, you can put in that zip code and it will tell you approximately, if you know the weight, how much it would cost. The only one time that I did that, like I said, the guy actually had went to the post office, figured out the box that would fit in, you know, like the one price box they have at the post office, and he offered me a price that included that box. And so I said, okay. And I didn't do anything until he had PayPal'd my money. So, you know, we didn't talk about that a lot, but you can always accept money through PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, all those things. So if you are wanting to do that, remember there are transaction fees on some of those things. So be aware of that, and you'll build those into your price. But like, I bought a bed in Myrtle Beach and the woman wanted me to send it through Cash App. And that's great, because you don't have to carry around cash. And so, you know, once again, however you want to build this out for yourself, and the more flexible you can be, if you have a couple different ways to accept money, it's easier, definitely. But it looks like we do have some demand for wanting to create that store. And it's very much a next level. And I would not suggest it for anyone unless you probably have 10 products or more, because you are competing, you know, with national stores. So if you go and you actually shop in the Marketplace store, you've got, you know, people that have hundreds of products, a lot of people that are reselling a lot of things. And so someone with a small amount of products could really get lost in that unless you're sending specific customers that way. All right, is there anything else before we wrap this up? It doesn't look like it at this point. So thank you guys for joining us. I will tell you my email real quick if you need any further assistance. It is Camille, CAMILLE at idrsinc.org. So that's idrsinc.org. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to me and I'll sure help you with anything I can. And if there is nothing else, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys in the future.
Thanks, Camille. It's nice seeing you.
You too. And Lynn put my email in the chat if you guys need it.
Bye.
Thank you.